All right, welcome back. Now, it's likely that you've woken up to still more rain this morning, whether it's climate change or even cyclical conditions. We are experiencing some extreme weather. So what can cities and towns do to future-proof themselves? UKZN Professor of Town and Regional Planning, Professor Magidimisha-Chipungu, speaks to us now. And Prof, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. I think before I get into the question around what can be done to almost future-proof our cities, let's talk about what these weather conditions are exposing about, historical town planning. I mean, when we look at what's going on right now with our cities, the damage to infrastructure, where are the gaps in your view?
Thank you very much, Tumelo, for having me. The gaps are in number of places, and from town planning perspective, is that we are having a lot of people within our cities, and the population within mega cities are growing at a very fast rate. And obviously, when population grows within urban environment, you are obviously expecting a number of changes in terms of the land uses and how people relate with space and how people use the current infrastructure. And that's what the gaps is, because the rate in which our cities are growing is not followed by the economic growth. It's not followed by growth in infrastructure or expansion of infrastructure. So we are not able to match. So there's a mismatch there going on. And that's why we find that most people, they end up in the informal settlements and trying to create their own lived experience within the urban environment in those informal settlements. And as you know, the kind of informal settlement that we're talking about in South Africa and the characteristics, even across the globe, they aren't sustainable from infrastructure point of view, but also from the structure itself. So it's something that can easily be washed away with water. And of course, the living conditions there are questionable. So those are the challenges that we're faced with. And with the climate change on board, with the rains coming heavily like we are having now, obviously this has a long-term impact into their lives and their sustainability within urban environment.
Right. Prof, what about the maintenance of some of our, infrastructure when we look at, bridges or roads, and how when we do have especially extreme rainfall and, weather conditions, we see so much damage on the roads. What does it say about the maintenance of such infrastructure?
Yeah, it's a good one, because it is quite clear that we are not able to cope with the population growth, and we're not able to invest the amount of money needed in order to maintain the infrastructure. But maybe it's not just about maintaining infrastructure. We should be putting new infrastructures in place and investing into bulk infrastructures, not just focusing on the maintenance. Of course, the maintenance is key to this effect. But the question is, have we been building adequate infrastructures within the urban environment, which caters for the population? And that the mismatch I talked about earlier on is the one which we need to really look into it closely. Recently in Durban this year, obviously, we had huge floods and it was all over, and we lost lots of life. And the question is, have we managed to replace those infrastructure yet? No, not really. In some instances, yes. In some instances, no. So if we are taking such a long time to replace infrastructure, rains aren't stopping. They are coming. And the question is, do we have the capacities, the country, to maintain our infrastructure and introduce new infrastructure?
And that's the question, Prof, that I was going to ask alongside, obviously with the climate crisis that we're currently faced with, not only in South Africa, but the entire world. What significant impact does the crisis have on informing future cities and, town planning strategies? I mean, right now in your office, in your boardroom, in your place of work, in your industry, what are the conversations around making sure that you future-proof infrastructure, obviously with this advent that we're going through in terms of climate change?
What we ought to be doing as planners is actually to design cities which are resilient, sustainable, and smart. And there's been a lot of discussion in the field in which I am, where we talk about smart cities, but without actually bringing on board the concept of resilient. And cities cannot be smart if they aren't resilient. So that is the first thing. That's a discussion we are supposed to be having and implementing that. The question is, are we creating smart cities And are those smart cities resilient? And if they are not, therefore, they cannot be smart cities. That is the first thing we need to be dealing with. Then the other thing is that, in fact, it's not even just a discussion for the future. That's how cities are supposed to be built, right? We're supposed to be building and designing cities which are resilient. We're supposed to be mindful in the way in which we design our cities, the way in which we come up with the infrastructures and any land use development within our urban environment. We cannot continue as if everything is normal, where we allow our urban environment to wash away all the greenery within the space and you come up with the concrete. We all know what happens when you have a lot of concrete. And what we've been doing in South Africa, in fact, we have not been building new cities, and we need to be clear about that. What we've been doing, we've been expanding the urban footprint because people, they're coming to the urban environment, right, to the bigger cities, if you want to put it that way. So we have not built new cities. And if we have not built new cities, what does this mean to the communities and to the population at large? It means that everyone, we are all concentrated in a smaller piece of land within urban environment. But what we have done, and rightfully so, we have developed nodes. And of course, we'll also come up with corridors and to encourage development within the urban environment. It's only now when we are starting talking about developing new cities from the scratch, and this is eNCA, which is a very exciting development coming up, and I hope should it get implemented correctly to answer some of the problems that we have. So that is the thing. We should be building new cities, not expanding urban footprint without expanding the infrastructure, because that's what's happening. So we are expanding footprint, but not the building new cities.
And with that point, Prof, I have to leave it there. And I appreciate you, of course, speaking to me about this, quite a thought-provoking one, when it comes to town planning and future cities or even smart cities. Professor Hope Magidimisha-Chipungu saying that they equally have to be resilient. UKZN Professor of Town and Regional Planning, Professor Hope Magidimisha-Chipungu, thank you so much for your time.